Donald J. Trump is calling for a total and complete shutdown of Muslims entering the United States until our country's representatives can figure out what the hell is going on.
That's right. That's our sitting president advocating for the complete and total banning of a religious minority from entering the United States. To wild applause. Donald's question is actually pretty apt here. What the hell is going on? Islamophobia, as we all know, is the fear or dislike of the religion Islam, and it's spiked in the United States since the 9/11 attacks of 2001. Now, it's easy to see why Islamophobia is so prevalent. Islam is constantly presented as pure evil by mainstream media outlets, which portray Muslims as these insidious infiltrators hell-bent on taking America down from the inside. I wish I could say I were exaggerating.
Dramatic Muslim invasion, that is the subject of this evening's Talking Points memo.
Islam is rising. An alarming new poll shows that large majorities in the Muslim world want Sharia to become the law of the land. Now,
do you think Islam is at war with the West?
I think Islam hates us.
Yikes. But what most people don't realize is that Muslims have been living peacefully in the United States since the 1600s. They survived in low numbers until the 20th century when Muslim immigration began to spike. In the second half of the century especially, Muslims from South Asia came over for better economic opportunity. And they raised children like my parents who grew up in America just like you and me. They went to high school, played sports, stressed out over grades, watched TV, went through awkward phases, speak with American accents, love Sunday night football, and are proud to be Americans. They're completely integrated into the society, and they've raised their own families just like yours. Now, of course, not all Muslims are this integrated, but the fact that there are almost 3 million of us in the United States that have peacefully coexisted with non-Muslims for decades should be pretty definitive proof that we're not out to get you. But despite this, Muslims have become the scapegoat of modern-day American politics. Part of this is due to the legitimate discomfort caused by the terrorist attacks that have plagued Europe over the last 2 years, and yes, of course, groups like ISIS and Al-Qaeda do pose a threat to the United States. But the double standard that Muslims are held to in this country is unreal. For example, after the Orlando nightclub shooting, perpetrated by a non-practicing Muslim who was proven to be mentally unstable, then-candidate Donald Trump called for the nationwide surveillance of mosques and other increased security measures. But when Stephen Paddock, a 64-year-old white man, killed 59 people and injured 500 plus more in October, what did Donald Trump say?
He was a sick man, a demented man, a lot of problems, I guess, and we're looking into him very, very seriously, but we're dealing with a very, very sick individual.
And of course, in August, when a neo-Nazi Charlottesville protester rammed a car into a crowd of counter-protesters, killing one, what did Donald Trump say?
I do think there's blame. Yes, I think there's blame on both sides. You look at both sides. I think there's blame on both sides, and I have no doubt about it, and you don't have any doubt about it either.
And there's no greater evidence of this than his proposed Muslim ban, which, in a supposed effort to reduce the risk of Islamic terrorism in the United States, would have banned the entry of immigrants from 7 Muslim-majority countries. Yet, according to NPR, of the 7 countries listed, none of them are ones from which radicalized Muslims have actually killed Americans in the US since 9/11. Now, this would all kind of make sense if Islamic terrorism posed a legitimate danger to Americans in everyday life. But contrary to popular belief, this just isn't true. A study carried out by the University of North Carolina showed that less than 0.0002% of Americans killed since 9/11 were killed by Muslims. Based on these numbers, and those of the Consumer Product Safety Commission, the average American is more likely to be crushed to death by their sofa or TV than they are to be killed by a Muslim. In fact, according to the FBI, 94% of terrorist attacks conducted from 1980 through 2005 were by non-Muslims. And from 2008 through 2016, the number of terrorist attacks committed by white right-wing extremists was roughly quadruple the number committed by Islamic extremists. You might be saying, okay, maybe it's true that America isn't quite as much danger as I expected. But because these attacks are committed in the name of Islam, isn't it true that Islam is still a violent and dangerous ideology? This is the pitfall that a lot of Americans get trapped in, and once again, it's not hard to see why. All people know about Islam is what they see in the media, which are extremist attacks that make headlines, and violent quotes from the Quran that they see on the internet. So it's easy to just subconsciously form an image of Islam as this barbaric, violent ideology. But there are a few things you have to consider. One, the Quran, the Muslim holy book, must be put into context. Many of the violent verses in it are from times of war, when the Muslims were struggling for survival after being ostracized, attacked, and tortured by the non-Muslim Meccans. We see equally or more violent verses in the Bible that, unlike in the Quran, have no prompt whatsoever. But we have better sense and realize that Christianity is not a violent religion. 2. The Prophet Muhammad laid down a very strict code of battle that explicitly stated not to kill women, children, those who surrendered, the elderly, or the ill. And 3, perhaps most condemningly, the Quran explicitly states to say to the non-Muslim, "For you is your religion, and for me is my religion," in a verse that Muslims around the world memorize as children. Islamic terrorists are the ones who misconstrue the violent verses for their own political gain, just like the KKK twist the words of the Bible to promote their own agenda. For reference, here's Christopher Barker, a KKK leader, doing the exact same thing.
The Bible says that we were all born equal.
Leviticus 19:18 is what you're saying, love thy neighbor.
Right.
So you're taught this. I'm telling you, Leviticus 19:18, love thy neighbor. It says, love thy neighbor of thy people. My people are white. Your people are black. I'm what I am. You're what you are.
Are you racist?
No.
It's important to remember that even though we may all believe that our ideologies are perfect, humans are inherently flawed. Someone will always take things too far. That's how we get extremism of all types. But it's our responsibility to be fair judges of our fellow Americans, and to treat them with decency and respect, even if we question their beliefs. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.